hopefully go away. I'm going to say in 5 seconds time, just uploading the webinar to YouTube Live.
Is it also available on the website? Is that right?
It is going to be available on the website momentarily. Just putting up the link. And go up. And now we are. So, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. If you don't know already, while you're here this evening, you are here for the Lordship Lane consultation event that's taking place this evening. It's starting from 7 o'clock. I appreciate we've got a couple of people who've joined us so far. I'm sure others will join us shortly, so we'll have a proper start in about two minutes or so. Hopefully you have received a leaflet in the post. It's actually a consultation response. So the leaflets you would have received in the post, you can pair up and literally put them back through into your post box, because they are free posts. But other ways in which you can find further information about this consultation session is that, if I'm just going to load up onto my screen, is the website. So that is 573-575lordshiplane.com. For those people who are currently up on the website, a video is visible of tonight's event, and just to remind you also that there is also another consultation event that is taking place on Monday as well. Please, after the session itself, there will be a few kind of questions that we'll be asking you as part of a survey to get your own feedback, and hopefully you should be able to see my screen there, which is a short feedback form, which should last about, well, no longer than 2 minutes. Some say 3 minutes there below, but that's available straight after this consultation session as well. And there's a look at the leaflet that you should have hopefully received in the post. And for those people who aren't able to attend this evening or Monday night, please do pass it on that it's possible to get in contact with us on our free telephone number, which is 0800 433 2622, and we will shortly be actually undertaking some doorstepping sessions where we'll be speaking to residents also about the application itself. So currently we have 8 or so people on there right now. I'm just going to put this screen up on full screen so everyone else can have a look, and hopefully there we are. And about in regards to, well, let's actually introduce those who are also on tonight's evening session as well. So we have Abigail from Sphere 25. Do you want to say hello, Abigail?
Hello. Yeah, I'm a planning consultant, so we'll be submitting the application when it's prepared. So we'd really like to hear from you and get your feedback before submission.
And Zillard we have from Rohax Architects here as well. Zillard, would you like to say hello and say a little bit about Rohax?
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I will just show some images of the proposal and the architecture.
Brilliant. And because I know I haven't said that, or who I am, my name is Raj Mandat from Huddle Communications. I was responsible for the leaflets that would have gone through your door, and also website and tonight's session as well. So please, we do welcome any feedback, not just simply on the proposals, but the consultation itself as well. As I mentioned earlier, tonight we'll be running on till 8 o'clock. The video itself will be posted up onto the website as well. And the reason why we are running this consultation session is because we, alongside our applicant, RK Group Limited, are looking to submit a planning application in regards to 573 to 575 Lordship Lane. We want to get your views ahead of submitting a planning application, and your comments and feedback gets compiled together as part of something called a statement of community involvement report, that something that Huddle Communications ends up writing and submitting alongside the application. And I see that we now have 10 people. We were expecting 12 in total this evening, but I think we shall make a start. So Szilard, I am going to correctly this time give you control of the screen, and hopefully you might be able to make a start.
Yes, I think
Perfect.
I got control. So I would like to just talk a bit first of all about location and the existing conditions of the site and the context, and then later I will just show quickly the main elements of the proposal, what we are proposing, and what's the connection of the proposal with the context. So the site location, more or less, I suppose people know where it is. It's between Lordship Lane and Moselle Avenue, just behind the Esso petrol station. There's a lightweight industrial function site there, and that's basically where we are. I'm trying to go next one. Here we are showing just a reminder of the site again, how actually it looks from the street level, from Lordship Lane, from the Esso petrol station, from different angles. You can see it's a single story, 1.5 story structure at the moment, and then some closer photos actually what it is there at the moment, just as a reminder. Again, some reminder photos of the area, Lordship Lane, from different angles. One which is the junction at the Granville Road, one which is looking from Dunbar Road junction towards the site, and the existing buildings hidden by the tree, and then one view of the junction of Dunbar Road. Just an example was a recent building just adjacent to the site as well. More views along Lordship Lane conservation area, which is quite an important view later, and also the Moselle Avenue, which is also a conservation area. Again, more views of Moselle Avenue, the back, and Lordship Lane. So how we started the design, we just did a little analysis of the local context and the constraints. Again, just a reminder of the orientation of the site. It's mainly, this is basically south where the sun is. Access to the site currently is through the petrol station and from Lordship Lane. There's no really access to it from the back. Public transport, which is relatively close to the site. It's a good location, approximately 9 minutes to the closest tube station, underground station, Wood Green, and there are several bus stops in the area too. The use of the site is commercial at the moment, and you can see that on the diagram is actually a kind of an island in the residential sea. So it's the area is mainly residential with a very small amount of commercial use. The buildings around the site is are 3-story. There are some 4-story buildings along Lordship Lane, and 2.5-story terraced housing on the Moselle Avenue. The site lies just on the boundary of 2 conservation areas. One of them is the Noel Park Conservation Area to the south, which is quite a large area with 2,000 terraced houses. And basically we just looked at how actually this influenced the design. We analyzed the architecture of the existing buildings, especially concentrating on Moselle Avenue because that's where the site is. You can see just various features listed here, which is a fish scale clay tile, which is quite nice. Slate and brown roof tiling, red-brown bricks, terracotta window sills with corbels, string cores. So we analyzed actually how what the architecture of the Moselle Avenue is. The same for the Lordship Lane conservation area, which basically is along the Lordship Lane and consists of 4 or 5 properties grouped together as a larger house. Again, the main materials are here red brown bricks and recently refurbished, replaced roof and a pebble dash render, bay windows. Also looked at how actually the windows are grouped together as the proportion of the windows, how dominant the chimneys are, and so on. So what are we proposing? We're proposing 17 new homes, which all of them affordable homes in various sizes. We've got 1-bed units, 2-bed units, and 3-bed units. All residential units are designed to meet the minimum national space standards, and over 10% of the units homes are designed as a wheelchair accessible flat. The rest of the housing, the units are adaptable, wheelchair adaptable, easily adaptable. We also design and propose amenity space with a children play area, and 2 blue badge car parking space, and 24 cycle parking spaces. How it looks in on the site, it's basically on the image, which basically we're trying to follow the existing building at Coldham Court as much as possible, as that's the language of the existing area as well. It's a 4-story building. The top floor is set back. We've got amenity space towards the south, which has to be landscaped, which is already an improvement to the industrial use. We get access. The main access is going to be from the Coldham Court, not through the petrol station. Here you just got some quick floor plans, again explaining how actually the building works. As I mentioned, the access is going to be from Coldham Court. We've got the 2 wheelchair usable blue patch car parking spaces, some visitor bike park, and we've got the main entrance, the corner of the Coldham Court. We've got refuse store, a bike store on the ground floor. We've got a wheelchair usable homes and various flats. On the upper level, again, just showing the layout of the flats. All of them are dual or triple aspect. So just maximize daylight and sunlight in the units. All of them have some balconies, private amenities, quite generous size. Upper level, again, 2-bed units, 1-bed units, dual, triple aspects. So not just having dual aspect to maximize daylight and sunlight, but also minimize impact on neighboring properties. The top level, which is the fourth floor, set back quite well from the edge of the main building. It's because of the, again, minimizing impact from neighboring properties, and also people can't really stand by the edge of the roof, so they can't really see down directly to neighboring gardens. We propose a green roof, which is just maintenance access only, just enhance biodiversity in the area. So how it looks, how appearance. I already mentioned that we basically had a look at and investigated actually in the area. We tried to get ideas from the neighboring conservation area, and reference back to the architecture of these existing buildings. You can see on the image, we looked at the proportion of the windows, which are vertical. So we try to create vertical openings on the facade using brick facade, various colored, because you get some nice mix of bricks, not just one single color. Various lintel details and bands are all actually interpreted into a new proposal. We've got windows grouped together, as we've seen on previous existing images, which gives the language of some fenestration. Also, as you can see here, the final one is that the ground floor is a bit darker brick than the upper levels, and also we try to introduce this language in the proposal. Just quickly show some elevation drawings. Again, showing the materiality of the proposal. Darker ground floor, as I mentioned, it's just a reference to the existing buildings in the area. Some detailed, some nice brick features, which are this perforated brickwork, hit and miss brickwork, vertical window proportions grouped together with again different brick features and detailing, which gives quite a rich shadow and layering on the facade. The top floor is set back, as I mentioned. It's got a different material as showing that's a roof and not part of the almost building. That's the building reads as a 3-story building plus a roof. An area view, which probably no one's going to see, only the birds. Again, you can see, just to understand, the access from the court and the parking spaces, entrance, amenity space to the south, playground, and setback top floor. Here we try to show a before and after images, which actually shows the view from the Lordship lane. In the foreground, the Esso petrol station, and the background is the existing, and this is how actually it will sit. Of course, some trees are here, actually not shown, just for clarity, so we can see what how it looks. A similar view just from the Moselle Avenue and the Lordship lane. Again, as you can see, how actually sits between the two existing buildings. Again, the tree here, you can see just missed. We didn't show it for clarity, so probably in reality you won't even see this much. And one more view from the conservation area. Just a glimpse of between the two buildings, which here actually a bit more zoomed in, just to actually see how it will impact the conservation area. And in the real life, I think this is going to be, you can see it's even a smaller portion. And just a view from the back, from the entrance and the car park area, and the Goldham Court area. We can see we're gonna improve the paving at the back here, and also the refuse, the current refuse strategy or arrangement is not very nice. We're gonna provide, I think, a better solution for that with a enclosed refuse store. Entrance on the left, and then you can see the view actually is not blocked as the existing. Actually, you can see through a nice landscaping and trees. So just one more on this one. As you can see, the eaves line or the top of the Goldham Court is basically aligning with the proposal. The top floor disappears, not gonna affect the views. And just again, one more view from the of the main entrance area and the garden, and then how actually the terraces and the windows designed. And I think, Raj, that's it. We, I think, happy to answer any questions if there are. In the meantime, thank you for listening. Raj?
Do not worry, Zilla, thank you so much for that presentation. I am still here, just, dragging a little bit on being on mute. So one thing I wanted to tell everyone who is here is there is a question and answer function here on tonight's webinar. I think some of you already found it because it looks like we have 18 or so questions that have already been asked. As well as that, there are some questions that come through from residents ahead of this evening via the phone, or whether it be through the comment card, or whether it be through email as well. We'll do our best to kind of group them together and answer them. So I'm just going to quickly scroll through and have a look for some of those questions. We'll make sure we'll answer all of them. But please use this time and right until the end of the session to send as many questions as you may have. So, for instance, one question we have right away is what is actually happening to the petrol station? Well, so for the person who has asked that question there, you've got the petrol station just behind the site, or you could say north of the site there. That's not actually within the site ownership of the applicant, the Arcade Group Limited. I should also say I'm not going to answer all these questions by myself this evening. I will fill them out to Abby and Zillard as well. So, and most often I'll try and answer and ask what their thoughts are. So, Abby, am I right in saying that that area within this red line here, that is the only thing that is in the ownership of the applicant as well, and that petrol station?
So that actually answers the other question about RK Windows as well. So RK Windows is actually the client who own the light industrial unit, and we have right of access via Coldham Court, but they're going to be demolishing their units to make way for this. But the petrol station is outside of their ownership. So petrol station is staying. Whether or not people decide to do things with it in time is not, it's not covered under this anyway, if that helps.
And in terms of, so the question, what is actually going to happen to Arcade Windows? So you mentioned the site itself will be demolished, but the company, are they going to be relocated, or is that just?
Yeah, I need to discuss that with the owner, but I imagine they have other premises which they, I think everyone's downsizing these days anyway.
Okay, so I'll say that has been answered there. It's only about the petrol station. So let's move on to, we'll move on to that design question in a moment. So, but in regards to how tall will the development be? So let's go to a slide that shows the development itself in terms of, so there's an answer right there. It's 4 stories. And I'm not so sure if your question, I know I'm popping through the screens quite quickly. Here you are, 4 stories, that's ground, first, second, and third. Some people say ground plus 3, but it is a 4-story building. I'm not so sure if you might even mean what the actual height is in meters. Zillah, do we have a rough idea of how tall this might be? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
I mean, on this image, you can actually see the floor-to-floor height is usually 3 meters. So the 4-story altogether will be around 12 meters tall. But as I mentioned, the top floor is set back quite well. The main visible building structure will be 9 meters tall, which is the third story.
You just use that term setback. What do you mean by setback?
Setback is basically we've got quite a generous distance from the edge of, I don't know if you can see my mouse here, from the building line to the top floor wall, external wall.
Okay, thanks, Zillah. So I'm going to go to another question. So we have, here's a question in regards to why can't you build houses instead of flats? I'm going to give this a go and then I'll give this to Abby shortly. London Borough of Haringey, like other London boroughs themselves, there's a real priority for building a number of homes in those boroughs, and also increasing, in some cases, increasing the density of areas where there are considered to be good transport links. And I believe that this area here, Lordship Lane, I think Zillah mentioned earlier, I will scroll back to it very, very slowly in terms of the slides, in regards to the transport access this site has. And that is the reason for why we're proposing 17 homes, and a mixture of homes as well, so 1, 2 and 3 beds as well. Hopefully that has answered your question. I'm going to pass on to Abby. Is that a fair enough question in regards to why are we proposing apartments as opposed to, I don't know, terraced houses or semi-detached houses?
Yes, that's right. I think it's just such a accessible location that Haringey have allocated it for housing, and they want to make the most out of it, really, without overdeveloping. But making sure that places in accessible areas are well connected and thus lend themselves to a higher number of housing. And the mix as well is also been dictated by Haringey. They need 1s and 2s based on their housing needs assessment. The council's undertaken a lot of research into the housing needs in Haringey, and it's all policy backed on what they need to be brought forward in their council.
Okay.
Does that help?
I think so. I'm sure we'll have another question pop up soon if that's not the case. So what a question come up is, what do we mean by affordable? So first of all, so none of these homes will be for private sale, in terms of it being a house that is just listed on the private market. There will be a mixture of those 17 homes that will be available for socially rented homes, or there's something else called intermediate homes as well, which will both come into the definition of affordable homes. So that intermediate could be, for instance, shared ownership. That's something that's been in discussions with Haringey Council at the moment, but the applicant, and I'll say this a number of times, Abby can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the applicant is committed to delivering 100% affordable housing to this home, and to this development, sorry. And someone here I know asks, so who is the target buyer for these flats? So I want to say that those who are on the housing list will be eligible for a home in this development. Is that right?
Yeah, I imagine so. We've had several meetings with Haringey and their housing department about working with them to deliver affordable housing. Yeah, what the tenure actually comes down to, it's still being negotiated. I know as well as everyone else that affordable doesn't always mean actually affordable, but it'll be down to the council to allocate those who need it the most. So that's.
And okay, thank you, Abby. We are going to move on to Zillard, and there's a question here. In fact, I'm not so sure what one of those are. So what is a call or call bell?
Actually, here, if you stop here, and it's a piece of architectural type of bracket. I don't know whether I say anything under.
Yeah, I think right there. Is that right? Those kind of brackets.
Yes, it's kind of projecting out, holding the element which is projected out from the wall. So you can see it on the under the window. The two corbels. That's what it is.
So okay, and okay, so that's one of the key features in regards to the conservation area.
One of the basically key features in the area and the Noya Park conservation area.
Okay, and I will move on to. Oh, here's a question here from earlier. What do you mean by generous? So I think the only time I think I remember hearing about generous was probably about the terraces or the private amenity space. So what do you mean by generous here, Zillard?
I meant area-wise and depth and wise as well. And the smallest balcony is 6 square meter. Okay, actually there's a 5.5, 6, 7 square meter balcony. I think that's quite generous nowadays amenity space.
So it's something that exceeds what the policy requirements would be.
Certainly, I mean, minimum. I think requirements are 5 or below 5. So,
okay, so it's bigger than that. And then in terms of what's proposed on the, so actually this image is probably perfect. So on the ground floor, so on the homes above, you have terraces, and these right here in the garden. Sorry, on the ground floor, are they kind of like private? Are they? What would you call it? Are these winter gardens, or are they kind of? What's the provision there on the ground floor?
I think the ground floor is still terraces.
Okay.
You don't have winter gardens, still the terraces, but also you have access to a communal garden area. So I think that's actually adds to the amenity.
Yeah, and just to add to that, as part of the refining of the design, we've made sure that they've got defensible planting so that people don't feel like they're being overlooked from those using the amenity space, and they don't have to kind of put up screens and those sort of things. So we've got sort of L-shaped planting around those, and those are slightly larger. We've got a 3-bed on the ground floor. They do have direct access, but they're also slightly separated from that open amenity space. Yeah, it's just one of the things that we've considered throughout the design process.
And talking of green space, so a couple of other kind of on that kind of theme. I think there's another question about some trees as well. Is there will there be any loss of trees at all as a result of this development?
No. So we if you go to the site plan, we previously took the footprint more towards the north, but in order to protect that tree and keep it there, that's why it's kind of been slightly squashed towards the south, and brought out a little bit deeper, and that's to fully protect that tree in situ. even though it's not actually, I don't think it's actually within the conservation area, but we've done our best to keep that as it is.
And so here's another question as well. So I know I'm running through the list, but not too quickly. Here's a question. Here is, so why can't you have a green roof terrace? And I know we have a slide here that says it's simply for maintenance, maintenance access only. Why can't residents enjoy, have a terrace on top of the building itself?
I think it's mainly just give privacy to the neighboring properties. So you don't want actually people up there looking to other people's garden.
So that it'll be these kind of, because yeah, I imagine these gardens here. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And
then all the gardens. I mean,
all the. And I'm going to move on a little bit as well. Let's see if there's any else. So that's a question. So I hopefully answered that earlier. Will the large tree in the garden remain or being chopped down? I think that's the tree that Abby, you were referring to earlier. I don't know if that was also about one of the visuals that was proposed earlier in regards to. Sorry, I'm just going to, whether you perhaps meant this tree as well, perhaps, although that's not within the site ownership of the applicant.
Yes, yes,
so that is going to stay as well. So if that's for the person who asked that question, so someone is saying. So yes, that tree won't be chopped down as well. So I know these questions are coming thick and fast. You can, just to let you know, reminder again, so there's another consultation session that's taking place on Monday in the same format, and I appreciate that for some this perhaps isn't the ideal format. We'll be also visiting you shortly door to door. Happy to arrange a phone call or kind of meet you in person, seeing compliance with code regulations as well, in terms of if you just wanted to have a kind of one-to-one conversation and perhaps have a conversation about more of an interactive manner as well. So hopefully that addresses your questions there in regards to how the consultation phase is going to take place. Tonight isn't the last opportunity to ask questions. I
do appreciate that it's not ideal. It's not the ideal setup, but it's making the most of what we're able to do at the moment. But we are trying to answer your questions as best we can. But by all means, do continue. If you don't think we've addressed something fully enough, then by all means ask, and we're more than happy to discuss afterwards or in a separate forum.
Abby, I think you've raised an important point in terms of one question that has come up a few times, is the issue of parking. So I'm going to group these questions together. So one question is that there's provision of 2 car parking spaces. Where will the other driver tenants park, and whereabouts they will do? Because will there be principally parking inside the parking at Colden Court? And there's a wider question now: how do you stop anyone from doing so? And for instance, I'm just going to see if there's any other questions. Someone has asked a question about the issue in regards to the amount of traffic there's already on the roads. Someone has asked also about why can't there be any basement car parking as part of this development? And someone else has asked, why is there no car parking here at all? Harry, would you like to give that a go at all? I'm just going to move to the plan on where I think we have, actually, you know what, here I guess is probably a good image. Is that fair enough? In terms of kind of why no car parking, or why are there 2 blue badge car parking spaces. It's particularly led by the London Borough of Haringey, similar to other local authorities as well. There's a priority for, well, a strong preference for car-free developments, particularly in areas where there is good public transport links there on the site. And as part of the development, you're meant to provide at least 10% of those homes to be accessible, and that's why there's provision of 2 blue badge car parking spaces. In terms of the issue of why there's no basement car parking, as I mentioned before, the council themselves have a strong preference for not wanting to have car parking on the site as well. And I imagine that also it would be quite difficult to deliver basement car parking on a site like this, because as with all London boroughs and other local authorities up and down the country, priority is to deliver affordable housing, and the delivery of a basement car parking set of spaces makes that even more difficult, especially when we're trying to deliver a development that is well designed, but also delivers 100% affordable housing. And I don't know if you had anything else to add to that, Abby, at all. Oh, Sandy, you were on mute.
No, I was on mute. Yes, it's very much, it has what they call a public transport accessibility level of 5 on a scale of 1 to 6. So it's really up there with one of the most accessible locations in London. And as such, you know, the Greater London Authority and the Mayor, as well as Haringey, are looking for car-free or car-light developments. There is a lot of cycle parking allocated. I think is it 24 spaces for 17 flats. So, I mean, across London, they're encouraging sustainable modes of transport. Lordship Lane has got bus routes running down it, and you've got the stations really close by. Also, residents it'll be covered in the agreement legally that they won't be able to apply for parking permits. So parking on Moselle Avenue won't suffer as a result. But yeah, by all means, if you've still got further questions, do fire away.
So, okay, but one of the questions that we perhaps haven't asked is, so no one in the development will be allowed a car parking permit, but how do you stop? So I guess this photo here, how do you stop? How do you stop anyone from parking their car here, or how, for instance, how will the building be serviced? So, for instance, in the case of whether it be a delivery, whether it be furniture or an Amazon delivery, how will that take place for the building? So, Zillah, do you want to talk about how the building will be serviced, for instance?
The servicing is going to be from quote unquote from the view actually what you see from the main vehicle access. Yes, there are basically plenty of turning space there, this is basically the place.
Okay, and in terms of how do you stop people? In terms of, I imagine, obviously, given the nature of Haringey themselves will have a strong interest in ensuring that there's no disruption in terms of the roads and parking situation. One of the requirements is submitting a planning application is submitting a transport assessment. Am I right in saying that, Abby? So that will be submitted alongside the planning application, and then it will be determined by Haringey Council. So just a reminder in regards to the process, because some people have asked about timings, what's likely to happen. So we're looking at submitting an application later this summer. And then what happens is all the other reports, including the report that we produce as well, gets assessed by Haringey Council and is available for everyone else, including residents. You'll be notified of those reports that go up, and you will be able to view and assess those reports, so Haringey Council, and then be determined by a planning committee. So we're probably looking potentially at the end of the year, maybe beginning of the new year. Is that fair? I don't know. Probably it takes a bit of time to go through the planning process, and then from there, in terms of when we're looking at commencing, well, from after a kind of planning committee is often, I want to say approximately 6 months or so of signing something called a section 106, and then from there, I guess potentially another 6 months from there. So at the earliest, you're really looking at, I don't know, 2023. Is that fair to say? But that's still speculation at the moment in terms of timings of delivery.
Yeah, so we are hoping to be ready for a submission August, September time, and go to committee sort of late November, December. I should say also we do have it's called a PPA, so it's a planning performance agreement with Haringey. It's not, I mean, it sounds like we're, encouraging them to do something or other, but what it basically means is that we have a set amount of meetings and resourcing from the council in order to iron out any issues and get us to committee in the way that Haringey would like. If that, I imagine you have lots of questions.
So for instance, in terms of should you have opposition to the scheme, obviously we'd love for you to have a kind of chat with us, and we're happy to walk through and see whether there are any things that we could look to address or impacts that we can mitigate. So for instance, there's a question here in regards to antisocial behaviour. And there are ways in which you can have a look at mitigating any existing antisocial behaviour and any future antisocial behaviour as well. But there's an opportunity to provide us feedback. I think that's incorporated as part of our report, the planning application. Once a planning application gets submitted, you can also voice your opposition or support during the council's consultation itself. But I know I briefly touched on to antisocial behaviour. So one question here is, what are the plans for the gates between Coldham Court and Mozelle Avenue? We have had issues of antisocial behaviour as a result of people cutting through Lordship Lane. And what's the best slide to go to from there?
I don't think necessarily needs to go to a slide. The application is going to be and probably needs to be consulted with the local police as a secured by design requirement. It's usually part of the application process, and basically the police, we consultation the police and make sure that they are happy. And maybe we need to install CCTV cameras. It's really up to what the local police force and the requirement are.
Yeah. Whoever submitted that question.
Yeah. Sorry, Abby?
I was going to say, whoever submitted that, where exactly are they cutting through? Because at the moment there's no access to our site from Coldham Court. But whether it's that you're worried they will do.
Here you go.
But it'd be good to know.
Here. I'm not sure where if they can go through here or not. That's I don't.
Not at the moment, I don't think.
I don't think
I think
so,
there's a fence right the way up. But I mean, by all means, do let us know, because that anecdotal information is actually really crucial.
Well, I think it's a very good point. Say,
knowing how the site operates.
And this at least when we go through the consultation for secured by design, actually we can think about this, and it's not the final design. It's still in progress. So we really welcome these comments, and which we can implement and add to the plan.
And I think, Raj, did you say that there was a previous question about whether or not Coldham Court will be fenced off as well. Did that come up previously?
Yes, that's right. So whether access how would you still access Coldham Court?
Yeah, so Coldham Court, and that access is, we have a right of access, but it's not within our ownership. So we might be able to agree, improvements along the highway there, or whether or not it's decided to be, secure access. But by all means, that'll have to be done with the council and with Coldham Court.
And you mentioned, I think it was Zillard also mentioned, secure by design. So who are they? So
they are the police, basically. I'm always slightly startled when I get an email from the Met Police. But it's basically the Met Police have allocated staff to coordinate with planners and with the council in preparing planning applications, because it actually saves them money in the long run to allocate staff to plan developments so that crime is minimized. For example, things like natural surveillance, making sure that windows look out on a doorway, things like lighting. You wouldn't normally have bollard lighting by parking spaces because it often gets damaged easily. It's making sure that walls don't have features that can be climbed up. It's just different things like that which you are designing into a scheme in order to make it more secure and prevent crime from the get-go, basically. So we've been in consultation with a policeman called Lee Jenkins, and he's our secure by design officer for the northwest of northeast London area. So
for instance, please let us know the kind of information with regard to antisocial behaviour, any potentially any sort of that activity, because that helps us and help us look to improve the design itself. One question here that's come up, just a reminder that we've got about 7 minutes left. We'll probably overrun by a minute or so anyway, but in case there are any further questions, you can still ask right now. So here's a question.
A quick one is the cladding. There won't be any cladding. It'll be brick to reflect the neighbouring conservation areas. I know that Rohack's architects have taken cues from the neighbouring architecture, and it'll be brick, or at least brick slip cladding, non-flammable.
So it certainly won't be ACM cladding, which is the cladding that is referred to previously. In terms of what goes on here, these kind of darker areas here of part of the development, and I also saw this part here. What's this material here?
Darker material is still brick, just it's going to be darker brick.
Okay.
And the staircase, actually, maybe you can see a bit of a translucent stair, so you can see it through. That's a perforated brick, so it means that every second brick is going to be left out, so it's going to be basically a hole, so you can see through. You can have the light coming out as well, so actually it's going to maybe lit a bit the petrol station area, which might be a bit dark. So that's the idea there.
We just to add to that, we've been having discussions with energy consultants, and that really improves the ventilation by having those open brick areas. Also, back to the green roof. The green roof, it doesn't have to be green, but actually in energy credentials, it really does add to the scheme and make it sort of carbon neutral, which is what they're aiming to achieve across London. So
okay, and in terms of Oh no, you mentioned green space. We mentioned so the question here is like how many children's play space. So I guess we mentioned that there will be a green space, but in terms of, I'm going to find it. We mentioned children's play space. I think here in the presentation we've labelled it.
So I've actually looked up the policy, and it's only 3 square meters per child, which is required for playground play space. Given that most of the mix is 1s and 2 beds, with 2 3-bedroom apartments proposed, we're providing well above that. I think about, is it 125 square meters? That kind of region,
yes,
play area.
It's quite a big, yes. Look at it. I think the playground and the landscape is still going to be designed by a professionalist and landscape designer. And as Abby said, basically, the area which is dedicated for the playground is going to be probably exceed all requirements by the council.
So can I ask a quick question about that at all? So Abby, you mentioned that I can't remember how many square meters it was per child, but how do you work? How is that worked out in terms of the development? So this is 17 homes. How do you work out how many children there are going to be as part of this development?
It'll often be based on the unit mix. So I'm not entirely sure what Haringey's policy is, but a 3-bed might have 1 or 2 children as expected per unit, and then a 2-bed might have 1 or half. Obviously in practice you don't have half a child, but it'll be averaged over the unit mix.
So there'll be a formula that they would have, and that's how you do the calculation itself.
Yes, but I think based on the mix, we are still providing well above that. And obviously, we still have more discussions with the council and affordable. And I believe the council also own Coldham Court. So whether or not it's available to the residents of that or not, we will need to iron that out in due course.
And at the moment, the plans here, it's a green space, and I'm not so sure what the marking here is up on the floor plans here, but we've labelled it as playground. Will there be further information in terms of what it will look like, and it won't be just green space?
Yeah. I'm sure with the planning application, we will submit a landscaping strategy showing visuals and all of it sort of mapped out. And that can be conditioned as well, that it has to be delivered in line with that.
So we haven't mentioned this previously. I think we are coming up to something like separation distances. So I imagine it is, what is the distance between the building itself and its neighbouring buildings? I'm not sure what the best slide there is, Zillard. And I imagine another kind of question, follow-ups.
Site plan would be the best to show.
Okay, I'll let you get back to that, and I guess another follow-up question. So one is the distance from neighbouring buildings, and is it going to be impact on overlooking and daylight and sunlight of neighbouring properties?
The separation distance is 18 meters from the back facade of the building at the Mosel Avenue and between our building.
And when you say our building, do you mean from the terrace, or do you mean? Actually,
on all of the plans, there's a dotted line here.
Yeah,
which shows the 18 meter. So you can see the 18 meter actually is more in certain places than 18 meter. This is in accordance with the local requirements by authorities, and also this 18 meter is considered as a good distance to avoid any disruption for overlooking or daylight and sunlight. Yeah, basically I would say that.
Yeah. And am I correct in saying that the existing footprint of the building extends further than that at the moment? And I know it's got sort of first
Yes,
floor windows that look out as well.
The existing building is occupies the whole site, so actually it's going up to the boundary of the ownership. So we are actually setting back and improving the separation distances.
Okay, thank you. Thanks both. We haven't got any other kind of questions that have come up. I'll remind everyone, I'm just going to quickly go and remind you that hopefully you can see a screen now. So after the end of the session, there will be a survey that pops up where you can ask, well, I'll answer some of our questions and provide us feedback. If there's anything particular, please do raise it on that feedback form as well. Our telephone number is 0800 433 2622. That is also on the leaflet as well, and our email address and details of the website are on there. These slides that we've shown tonight, as well as the presentation, we uploaded to onto the website tomorrow morning. And if there's anyone who's missed out on tonight, they can look at tonight's video, or they can come along on Monday evening, and we're always happy to either speak to someone on the phone, send you a hard copy of this presentation in the post, or even simply meet you in person. Tonight's not, so as I said, tonight's not the last time that you can comment and give your views on the scheme. We're not looking to submit the application until later on this summer, potentially in September. So there's still quite a while away before any kind of decision about the scheme is made, and we're still working on making changes to the scheme and speaking to the likes of Secure by Design, making updates in regards to landscaping as well. Hopefully you found this evening helpful. Thank you to Abby and Zillard for answering your questions in the presentation. Thank you all for turning up this evening and asking questions. We really value your feedback. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, just to echo Raj, we really value any comments you have on the scheme, and we'll try our best to take those into account moving forward.
Brilliant. And on that note, I'm going to put an end to this evening. Thanks, everyone. If I can do that.